The Alpha King came to marry the most beautiful woman in the realm. Instead, he chose her sister, the one no one wanted. Valora had not been invited to the betrothal feast. She watched from the shadows of the servants' corridor as her sister Lysara glittered like a jewel before the gathered nobility, radiant and perfect, and everything Valora would never be. Their father had made certain of that years ago, when he tried to carve the curse from her face. She wore a veil now, thick and dark, concealing the scars that mapped her features and the secret that burned beneath them. No one looked at her. No one ever did. She was the shameful daughter, the hidden one, the mistake her father had tried to erase. So when Alpha King Valdric of Velmoria walked past her breathtaking sister without a second glance and stopped directly in front of Vealora's hiding place, she was certain she had finally gone mad. "This one," he said, his voice cold as mountain stone. "I'll take this one instead." The hall erupted into chaos. Her father went pale with horror. Her sister's perfect composure shattered into disbelief. And Valora stood frozen, unable to comprehend why a king who could have anyone would choose the daughter even her own family had thrown away. She would understand soon enough. He would marry her. He would protect her. He would give her everything she needed. But he would never love her. Neither of them understood how impossible that vow would become. The great hall of House Grenthorpe had never looked so magnificent, nor felt so suffocating. Valora pressed herself deeper into the narrow servants' passage, peering through the gap in the tapestry that separated her world from the glittering one beyond. Hundreds of candles blazed from iron chandeliers, casting golden light over silk-draped tables and noble guests who had traveled from every corner of the kingdom. All of them here for one reason: her sister's betrothal. Lysara stood at the center of the hall like a vision from a painter's fever dream. Her gown was cloth of gold that caught the candlelight and threw it back in dazzling waves. Her honey-colored hair had been woven with pearls and tiny diamonds. Her smile, practiced and perfect, made men stumble over their own feet, and women touch their own faces in quiet despair. This was the daughter Lord Aldous Grenthorpe showed to the world. Valora was the daughter he kept locked away. "You shouldn't be here," a voice hissed behind her. Valora didn't turn. She recognized the sharp tone of Mistress Helwick, the head housekeeper, one of the few servants permitted to know she existed. "I just wanted to see," Valora whispered. "See what? Your sister's triumph? Your father will have you whipped if he finds you anywhere near this hall." Valora's fingers touched the thick veil covering her face, feeling the ridged scars beneath the fabric. She knew what would happen if her father found her. She knew it intimately, but she had never seen an Alpha King before. No one had, not in Grenthorpe. The royal house of Velmoria kept to their mountain fortress, ruling from a distance, their Alpha Kings more myth than man. The stories said they were descended from the first wolves, their blood so pure it burned with power that lesser wolves could barely comprehend. The stories also said they died young. Every single one of them. No Alpha King of Velmoria had lived past 35 in 7 generations. Valdric was 32. "He's here," someone announced from the entrance, and the entire hall fell silent. Valora's breath caught. The great doors swung open, and Winter walked in wearing the shape of a man. Alpha King Valdric was tall, taller than any wolf she had ever seen, with shoulders broad enough to block out the torchlight behind him. His hair was black as a moonless night, falling past his collar in loose waves that seemed to absorb the candlelight rather than reflect it. He wore no crown, no jewels, nothing but simple black clothing that somehow made every nobleman's finery look garish and cheap. But it was his face that stole the air from Valora's lungs. Beautiful was not the right word. Beautiful implied warmth, softness, approachability. Valdric's features were carved from something harder, cheekbones sharp enough to cut, a jaw that could have been chiseled from granite, and eyes the color of deep winter ice. Pale gray, almost silver, utterly cold. Those eyes swept the room with the disinterest of a predator surveying prey too small to bother hunting. The alpha dominance that rolled off him hit Valora like a physical wave, even through the stone walls of the servants' passage. Her wolf, the small and stunted thing that it was, immediately dropped to its belly inside her mind, whimpering in submission. Around her, she heard gasps and sharp intakes of breath as every wolf in the hall felt the same crushing weight of pure, undiluted power. This was not a man. This was a force of nature wearing human skin. Lord Aldous stepped forward, his practiced smile firmly in place despite the sweat beading at his temples. "Your Majesty, House Grenthorpe is honored beyond measure to welcome you. May I present my daughter, Lysara, your intended bride." Lysara sank into a curtsy so graceful it could have been choreographed, her golden gown pooling around her like molten sunlight. When she rose, her eyes sparkled with carefully cultivated warmth, her smile designed to enchant. Valdric looked at her. His expression did not change. Not a flicker of interest. Not a shadow of desire. He looked at the most beautiful woman in the realm, the way a man might look at a piece of furniture. "Charmed," he said flatly. A ripple of unease moved through the crowd. This was not how the stories went. Men were supposed to fall at Lysara's feet. Kings were supposed to be dazzled. Her beauty was legendary, had been cultivated specifically for this purpose, to secure an alliance with the crown that would elevate House Grenthorpe above all others. Valdric's gaze moved on. It swept past the nobles, past the servants, past the tables groaning with food prepared in his honor. It moved across the hall, with that same predatory disinterest until, impossibly, horrifyingly, it stopped. On the tapestry, on the gap in the tapestry, on Valora. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Those frost-colored eyes pinned her in place like a butterfly on a collector's board. She felt seen for the first time in years, truly seen, and the sensation was so foreign it bordered on painful. "Who is that?" Valdric asked. The hall went silent. Lord Aldous followed the king's gaze, and Valora watched the color drain from her father's face. "No one of consequence, Your Majesty." "No one of consequence, Your Majesty. A servant. Servants don't wear veils." Valdric was already walking, not toward Lysara, not toward his intended bride, but toward the tapestry, toward Valora. Each footstep echoed through the suddenly silent hall like the tolling of a funeral bell. Valora's pulse thundered in her ears. She should run. She should flee before her father's wrath could find her. But her feet refused to move. Her wolf refused to let her turn her back on this apex predator, approaching with the inevitability of an avalanche. He stopped 3 feet from the tapestry, close enough that she could smell him. Pine and frost and something darker underneath. Something that smelled like power itself. "Come out," he commanded. It was not a request. Her wolf obeyed before her mind could object, and Valora found herself pushing through the tapestry into the blinding light of the hall, a dark and shrouded figure amid all that golden splendor. The whispers began immediately. "What is that? Is that a woman? Why is she veiled? What's wrong with her face?" Valora kept her head bowed, her shoulders hunched, making herself as small as possible. The veil was thick enough that she could barely see through it, which meant they could barely see her. That was the point. That had always been the point. Valdric studied her in silence. The weight of his attention was almost unbearable, pressing down on her like a physical force. She could feel him evaluating her, analyzing her, and she braced herself for the disgust, the dismissal, the command to remove herself from his sight. Instead, he spoke 4 words that changed everything. "I'll take this one." Silence. Absolute, deafening silence. And then the chaos erupted. The journey to the castle passed in a blur of disbelief. Valora sat in the royal carriage, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had gone white beneath her gloves. The velvet seat was softer than anything she had ever touched. The window beside her offered glimpses of countryside rolling past, autumn gold fields giving way to the dark forests that bordered Valmoria's mountain territories. She had not spoken since leaving her father's house. Neither had the king. Valdric sat across from her, his long legs crossed at the ankle, his pale eyes fixed on some point beyond the window. In the enclosed space of the carriage, his presence was even more overwhelming. The cold that seemed to emanate from him was not imagination, she realized. The temperature inside the carriage was noticeably lower on his side, as if winter truly did live in his bones. "You're afraid," he observed without looking at her. Vylora flinched. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Of me?" "Of everything." Something flickered across his features. Not quite amusement, but perhaps the distant cousin of it. "Honest, that's refreshing." The carriage hit a rut in the road, and Vylora grabbed the seat to steady herself. Her veil slipped slightly, and she scrambled to adjust it, her heart pounding with renewed panic. "You may cease that," Valdric said, still not looking at her. "Cease what, Your Majesty?" "The constant adjustments. I have no intention of looking beneath your covering." Vylora froze. "You do not wish to see what you've chosen?" "I chose you precisely because I cannot see you." His voice remained flat, emotionless. "If you prefer to remain hidden, then hidden you shall stay. It makes no difference to me." The words should have been cruel. They were delivered with such complete indifference that they could have been an insult. But Vylora heard something else in them, something that sounded almost like permission. "Why?" she whispered. "Why choose me at all? My sister is beautiful. The betrothal was already arranged. The alliance would have been the same whether you married her or me." Valdric's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Your sister is beautiful," he agreed. "Beautiful women have expectations. They want to be looked at, admired, loved." The last word dropped from his lips like a stone into a frozen pond. "I have no interest in providing any of those things." "And you believe I will not expect them? Will you?" Vylora thought about the years spent locked in her chambers, the meals eaten alone, the scars carved into her face by her own father's hand. She thought about what it meant to be so unwanted that even her existence was treated as shameful. "No," she said quietly. "I have never expected anything from anyone." Valdric finally turned to look at her, and Vylora felt the impact of those winter eyes even through her veil. "Will be my queen. You will have chambers, will be my queen. You will have chambers in my castle, servants at your disposal, wealth beyond anything your father's house could have provided. You will give me heirs to continue my line. And in return, I will ensure that no one ever looks upon you against your will." He paused. "Including myself. That is all you want? Children? That is all I can offer." Something shifted in his expression, there and gone too quickly to name. "I will protect you, Vylora. I will provide for you. But I will never love you. That is not cruelty. It is simply fact." The way he said it, so certain, so final, as if love were a foreign country he had never visited and never intended to explore. "Why?" Vylora asked again, bolder this time. "Why can you not love?" Valdric's eyes went cold again, colder than before, and she knew she had pushed too far. "That is not your concern," he said. "Do you accept my terms or not?" Vylora looked at this strange, cold, impossibly powerful king who had plucked her from obscurity for reasons she could not comprehend. He was offering her freedom from her father, protection from the world, a life where she would never again be beaten or starved or locked away. The price was simply accepting that she would never be loved. She thought of her mother, sold to pay her father's debts. She thought of the knife descending toward her eyes, her screams echoing off stone walls. She thought of Lysara's contempt, her father's hatred, the endless gray years of isolation, cold over cruelty, indifference over abuse. "I accept," Vylora said. Valdric nodded once, as if he had expected nothing less, and turned back to the window. Neither of them spoke for the rest of the journey. The castle of Velmoria rose from the mountains like a frozen dream. Its towers were carved from pale gray stone that gleamed almost white in the autumn sunlight, their spires reaching toward the clouds like fingers grasping at heaven. Snow dusted the highest peaks despite the season, as if winter ruled here regardless of what the calendar claimed. Valora stared at it through her veil and felt something loosen in her chest. It was beautiful. Cold and imposing and utterly unlike the dark, cramped estate where she had spent her life, but beautiful nonetheless. "This will be your home," Valdric said. It was the first he had spoken in hours. Home. The word felt strange. She had never really had one. The carriage passed through iron gates that swung open at their approach, revealing a courtyard where servants already waited in neat rows. Vailora noticed how they bowed as the king emerged, deep and reverent, but also how they kept their distance, how their eyes tracked him with something between fear and awe. A steward approached, an elderly man with kind eyes and a careful demeanor. "Your Majesty, the chambers have been prepared as requested." "Good. The Queen will require attendance. She wishes to remain veiled at all times. Assign servants who will not find that arrangement distressing." The steward's eyebrows rose fractionally, but he schooled his features quickly. "Of course, Your Majesty. Would the Queen prefer—" "She would prefer not to be stared at," Valora said quietly, surprised by her own voice. The steward's gaze moved to her, and she saw curiosity there, but no malice. "Then she shall not be, Your Majesty. I will select the staff personally." Valdric had already begun walking toward the castle entrance. Valora hurried to follow, her shorter legs struggling to match his stride. The halls they passed through were vast and echoing, hung with tapestries depicting wolves and mountains and battles from ages past. Everywhere she looked, she saw evidence of ancient power, of a bloodline that had ruled these lands since before recorded history. They stopped before a heavy oak door carved with intricate knotwork. "Your chambers," Valdric said. "Mine are in the opposite wing. You will not be disturbed." The distance implicit in those words should have stung. Instead, Valora felt only relief. Distance meant safety. Distance meant she could breathe. "The contract negotiations will take place tomorrow," Valdric continued. "Your father has been summoned to formalize the arrangement, unless you object to his presence." The thought of seeing Lord Aldous again made Valora's stomach clench, but she understood politics well enough to know that certain things required witnesses. "I do not object," she lied. Valdric studied her in weighted silence, and she had the unsettling sense that he saw through the lie effortlessly, but he did not comment on it. "Rest," he said. "Tomorrow will be difficult." The council chamber was smaller than Vailora expected, but no less intimidating. A long table of polished dark wood dominated the space, surrounded by chairs that looked ancient and uncomfortable. Morning light streamed through narrow windows, catching dust motes that swirled like tiny stars. Valdric sat at the head of the table, flanked by two advisors whose names Valora had not yet learned. He looked, if possible, even colder in the harsh morning light. The shadows beneath his eyes suggested he had not slept. She wondered if he ever did. And at the far end of the table, rigid with barely contained fury, sat Lord Aldous Grenthorpe. Beside him was Lysara. Valora had not expected her sister. The sight of that perfect golden beauty, now marred by dark circles and a pinched expression, sent a complicated wave of emotion through her chest. They had not spoken since Valora was 15, and had made the mistake of wandering too close to one of Lysara's suitors. The punishment had been severe. "Lady Valora," the chief advisor announced, "you may be seated." Valora took the chair nearest to Valdric, across from her father. She could feel Aldis's eyes burning into her like brands. The hatred radiating off him was so intense, she could smell it, sharp and acrid beneath his perfumed scent. "The contract is straightforward," Valdric said without preamble. He did not look at anyone in particular as he spoke, his attention on the documents before him. Lady Valora will become my queen. She will be granted full rights and privileges of her station. She will retain the option to remain veiled at all times, and no member of this court or kingdom will be permitted to view her face without her explicit consent. Lord Aldous leaned forward. Your Majesty, I must protest. You cannot possibly understand what you are agreeing to. That girl is not fit to be a queen. If you knew what she was, what she hides beneath that veil. I was not speaking to you. Valdrick's voice cut through the air like a blade. I was speaking to my future queen. The silence that followed was absolute. Valora saw her father's face go red, then white. Saw the vein in his temple throb with suppressed rage. He was not accustomed to being dismissed, to being treated as anything less than the most powerful man in the room. Valora, Valdrick said, and the use of her name without title sent a strange warmth through her chest. Are these terms acceptable to you? Yes, Your Majesty. More than acceptable. You are certain? Once this contract is signed, there will be no going back. You will be mine. The possessive word hung in the air. Mine. Valora had never belonged to anyone except as property to be despised and hidden away. The idea of belonging to someone who might actually protect that belonging felt like a fantasy too dangerous to believe in. I am certain, she said. Valdrick slid the contract across the table. Sign. Valora signed. Her hand trembled only slightly. Lord Aldous signed as witness, his pen pressing so hard it nearly tore through the parchment. The advisors signed. The seals were applied, the words spoken. And just like that, Valora was no longer a Grenthorpe. She was a queen. This farce will not stand, Aldous hissed as soon as the formalities concluded. When the court sees what you've married, when they see the monster beneath that veil, they will see nothing, Valdrick interrupted calmly, because no one will look. I have decreed it. Are you suggesting you know better than your king, Lord Grenthorpe? Aldous' mouth opened, then closed. Even his arrogance had limits when faced with the Alpha King's cold authority. Remove yourself from my castle, Valdrick continued. Your presence is no longer required, or desired. The dismissal was brutal in its simplicity. No thanks for the hospitality, no acknowledgement of the originally intended match. Lord Aldous rose stiffly, his face a mask of humiliated fury, but Lysara did not move. Sister, she said quietly, and the word dripped with venom. May I have a private word before we depart? Valora looked at Valdrick, uncertain. He raised one eyebrow slightly, leaving the decision to her. Clouds gathered in the distance. Clouds gathered in the distance, threatening snow. You must be pleased with yourself, Lysara said. Valora kept her hands clasped before her. I did not plan this, Lysara. I did not even want to be at the feast. And yet, here you are. Queen. The word twisted in her sister's mouth. You've taken everything from me. The crown, the title, the king. Her voice cracked. Do you have any idea what father will do when we return home? Who he will blame? For the first time, something like sympathy stirred in Valora's chest. Lysara had always been the favored child, yes. But that favor came with expectations. With pressure. With consequences for failure. I'm sorry, Valora said, and meant it. Lysara's laugh was bitter as poison. You're sorry. How touching. She stepped closer, her beautiful features twisted with something uglier. He thinks you're mysterious, doesn't he? The hidden bride, the secret queen. He has no idea what you actually are. Valora went very still. Father told me, you know, about the eyes, about what you are. Lysara's voice dropped to a whisper. Curse weaver. That's what they call creatures like you. Your mother was one. That's why father really sold her. Not for debt. Because she could see curses. Because she might have seen his. The words hit Valora like physical blows. Yes, Lysara continued. a cruel smile spreading across her face. Father carries something dark, doesn't he? Something he doesn't want anyone to know about. And your mother saw it. Just like you could see it, if you weren't so busy hiding like a coward. You're lying. Am I? Lysara tilted her head. Look at me with those silver eyes, sister. Look, and tell me I'm lying. Valora's hands shook. The scars on her face seemed to burn beneath her veil, phantom pain from wounds long healed. The king chose you for a reason, Lysara whispered. Maybe he senses what you are. Maybe he thinks you can help him. Her smile turned vicious. But curse weavers are extinct for a reason, Valora. They were hunted, killed, burned. When the court discovers what you are, when your precious king realizes he's married an abomination. She leaned in close enough that Valora could smell her perfume, roses, and something darker beneath. He won't protect you. No one will. And Father will finally get what he's always wanted. A world without you in it. Lysara pulled back, smoothing her gown as if they had been discussing nothing more interesting than the weather. Enjoy your crown while you can, sister. It won't last long. She swept away, leaving Valora alone in the alcove with her racing heart and the terrible weight of her sister's words. Curse weaver. Her mother had never told her. Her father had only ever spoken of her eyes as a curse, a deformity, something to be destroyed. But if what Lysara said was true, Valora touched her face through the veil, feeling the ridged scars that mapped her features. The scars that had been carved there when her father tried to cut out her eyes, not because they were ugly, because of what they could see. And somewhere in this frozen castle, an alpha king was slowly dying of a curse no healer could explain. Valora didn't believe in coincidences, but she was beginning to believe in fate. The wedding was held 3 days later in the great cathedral of Velmoria. Valora had never seen anything so magnificent or felt so utterly out of place. The cathedral soared toward the heavens, its vaulted ceilings painted with scenes of ancient wolf gods running across star-scattered skies. Thousands of candles blazed from every surface, their light reflecting off gilded pillars and stained glass windows that transformed sunlight into rivers of color. And every seat was filled. They had come from across the kingdom to witness their king take a bride. Noble families in their finest silks, military commanders in ceremonial armor, foreign dignitaries who had traveled weeks for this moment. All of them craning their necks, whispering behind gloved hands, desperate to catch a glimpse of the mysterious woman who had stolen a crown meant for another. Valora stood at the entrance, alone. There was no father to walk her down the aisle. She had refused Lord Aldous that honor, and Valdric had supported her refusal without question. So she would make this journey by herself, as she had made every journey in her life. The music began. A haunting melody played on instruments she could not name, filling the cathedral with sound that seemed to vibrate in her very bones. One step, then another. The whispers intensified with each pace she took. Why is she still veiled? Surely she'll remove it for the ceremony. What is she hiding? I heard she's horribly disfigured. I heard she's not even human. Valora kept her eyes fixed on the altar, on the figure waiting there in robes of midnight black. Valdric stood perfectly still, watching her approach with those pale gray eyes. His expression betrayed nothing. The walk felt endless. Each step brought new whispers, new stares, new judgment pressing against her like physical weight. Her wolf whimpered inside her mind, wanting to flee, to hide, to return to the shadows where she belonged. But she kept walking, because at the end of this aisle stood something she had never had before. Safety, protection. A life where she would never again fear her father's knife. She reached the altar and stopped before the king. Up close, she could see the tension in his jaw, the slight shadows beneath his eyes. He looked tired, worn, as if something was slowly draining the life from him, one heartbeat at a time. You came, he said quietly, for her ears alone. "Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might realize what you were agreeing to and run." Valora almost laughed. "I've spent my whole life running, Your Majesty. I'm tired of it." Something flickered in his eyes, vanishing before she could identify it. The high priest stepped forward, ancient and withered, his voice carrying through the cathedral with surprising strength. "We gather today to witness the sacred union of Alpha King Valdric of the House Velmarath and Lady Vylora of House Grenthorpe. Let those who would object speak now or forever, hold their silence." The pause stretched. Valora could feel the weight of expectation, the hope among some that someone would stop this madness. No one spoke. "The vows," the priest continued. "Do you, Valdric, Alpha King of Velmoria, take this woman as your mate, your queen, your bond for all the days of your life?" "I do." The words were flat, final, empty of emotion. "And do you, Valora, take this man as your mate, your king, your bond for all the days of your life?" "I do." The priest nodded. "The rings." A servant approached bearing a velvet cushion. 2 rings rested there, both forged from a metal Valora had never seen before. Dark as shadow, yet somehow luminous, as if starlight had been captured within the bands. Valdric took the smaller ring and reached for her hand. The moment his fingers touched hers, Valora gasped. He was cold. Not cool, not chilled. Genuinely, impossibly cold, as if his blood had been replaced with ice water. She stared at their joined hands, watching frost patterns form where their skin met, melting almost instantly but undeniably present. "Your Majesty," she breathed. I know." His voice was tight. "Give me your finger." She obeyed, too shocked to do otherwise. The ring slid onto her finger, a perfect fit despite no one having measured her. The metal was warm against her skin, a stark contrast to his frozen touch. "By the ancient laws of our people," the priest intoned, "I pronounce you mated and bound. You may claim your bride, Your Majesty." The cathedral held its breath. This was the moment. The kiss. The unveiling. The revelation everyone had been waiting for. Vylora's pulse raced so violently she felt dizzy as Valdric turned to face her fully. "Do you wish me to remove your veil?" he asked, quiet enough that only she could hear. "No." The word escaped before she could stop it. "Please, I cannot." "Then I will not." He lifted her hand, the same hand that now bore his ring, and brought it to his lips. The kiss was gentle, formal. His mouth was as cold as his fingers, pressing against her knuckles for just a moment before releasing her. The crowd erupted in confused murmurs. He didn't kiss her. He didn't remove the veil. What kind of marriage is this? But Valdric was already turning away, offering her his arm with the same cold courtesy he might show a stranger. "Come, my queen. The feast awaits." Valora took his arm, feeling the chill seep through the fabric of her gown. She should have felt disappointed, rejected, humiliated by such a public dismissal of intimacy. Instead, she felt something she hadn't expected. Gratitude. He had promised to protect her secrets, and he had kept that promise before every watching eye in the kingdom. "Thank you," she whispered as they walked back down the aisle together. Valdric glanced at her, a furrow appearing between his brows. "For what?" "For not looking, for keeping your word." He said nothing for a long moment. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. "I always keep my word, Vylora. Remember that." It sounded like a promise. It also sounded like a warning. Night had fallen over Velmoria by the time Vylora was escorted to her chambers. Not her chambers, she corrected herself. Their chambers. The queen's suite connected to the king's apartments through a private door, a door that now loomed in her peripheral vision like a threat. The servants had prepared everything. A bath scented with night-blooming jasmine, a nightgown of silk so fine it felt like water against her skin. Candles lit throughout the room, casting soft golden light over the massive bed that dominated the space. Valora sat on the edge of that bed, her hands folded in her lap, her veil still firmly in place. She had not removed it since leaving her father's house. Even for bathing, she had dismissed the servants and washed herself in darkness. The scars were bad enough, but her eyes, those silver eyes that had so terrified her father, those she could never allow anyone to see. 3 soft knocks at the connecting door made her flinch. "Come in," she managed. The door opened, and Valdric stepped through. He had changed from his ceremonial robes into simpler clothing, a white shirt unlaced at the throat, dark trousers. His feet were bare against the cold stone floor, and Vylora noticed he did not seem to feel the chill that made her shiver. Of course he didn't. He was made of winter. "I have something for you," he said without preamble. Vylora's brow furrowed beneath her veil. "Your Majesty?" He moved to the windows, where heavy curtains of black velvet had been drawn back to reveal the mountain vista beyond. With practiced movements, he released a series of catches, and additional layers descended. Panels of thick fabric, layered one over another, blocking every sliver of moonlight until the room plunged into absolute darkness. Vylora could not see her hand in front of her face. "These chambers have been modified," Valdric's voice came from somewhere to her left. "The curtains, once fully drawn, block all light. The servants know not to enter without explicit permission. In this darkness, you may remove your covering. No one will see. Not even me." The thoughtfulness of it made her throat tight. He had done this for her. Ordered modifications to his own castle so that she might have a space where she could simply exist without hiding. "You did this," she whispered. "For me? You are my queen." His voice was closer now, though she could not tell exactly where. "Your comfort is my responsibility." "This is more than comfort, Your Majesty." "Valdric." The word was soft. "When we are alone, when no one else can hear, you may call me Valdric." Her heart stuttered. "Valdric." "Yes." His breath ghosted across her shoulder, and she realized he was standing right behind her. "That's better." Slowly, with trembling fingers, Vylora reached up and removed her veil. The air touched her scarred face like a caress. She had forgotten what that felt like. Years of hiding, of fabric constantly pressing against her ruined features, and now, freedom. In this perfect darkness, she was free. "May I touch you?" Valdric asked. The question sent heat rushing through her body. "Yes." His hands found her shoulders first, cold palms settling against her bare skin where the nightgown had slipped. She shivered, but not from the temperature, from the intimacy of it, from the simple fact that someone was touching her with gentleness rather than violence. "You're warm," he murmured, something like wonder in his voice. "So warm. And you're cold. Are you always this cold?" "Yes." His fingers traced down her arms, leaving trails of frostfire sensation in their wake. "Does it disturb you?" "No." Vylora turned in his grip, facing the darkness where she knew he stood. "Nothing about you disturbs me, Valdric." She heard his breath catch. A small sound, barely perceptible, but she caught it nonetheless. Her hands rose, finding his chest by instinct. The shirt was thin, and she could feel his heartbeat beneath her palm. Strong but slow. Too slow, perhaps, for a living man. "Your heart," she said softly. "It beats so slowly." Another family trait. His voice had gone rough at the edges. "We run cold, we live slowly, and we die young." "You don't have to die." "Everyone dies, Vylora." "Not like this." Her fingers curled into his shirt. "Not before your time." His hands came up to frame her face and she tensed, waiting for the recoil, waiting for the moment his fingers found the ridged scars that mapped her features, and he pulled away in disgust. But he didn't pull away. Instead, his thumbs traced the scars with something like reverence, following the lines carved into her flesh, learning the map of her suffering through touch alone. "Who did this to you?" he asked. and there was something dangerous beneath the cold in his voice, something that sounded like rage carefully leashed. My father. His hand stilled. He will pay for this. He already has. He lost his chance at a royal alliance. He lost his favored daughter's crown. That is not payment enough for these wounds. Valora's chest clenched. Valdric. No. His voice was fierce now, the cold cracking to reveal heat beneath. You are mine now. Your hurts are mine. Your enemies are mine. And I will not forgive what was done to you. Before she could respond, his mouth found hers in the darkness. The kiss was cold. His lips carried the winter that lived in his blood. But there was nothing cold about the passion behind it. The desperate hunger that seemed to surprise him as much as it surprised her. He kissed her like a drowning man gasping for air, like she was warm itself, and he had been frozen for centuries. Valora responded instinctively, her hands sliding up his chest to wrap around his neck. She pulled him closer, sharing her warmth with him, and felt him shudder against her. We should stop, he said against her mouth. I shouldn't. Don't stop. The words came out fiercer than she intended. Please, don't stop. A sound escaped him, half groan, half surrender. And then there were no more words. In the absolute blackness of their chambers, the Ice King and his scarred queen came together for the first time. She shared her warmth with him and found that his cold was not unpleasant against her heated skin. The contrast was exquisite. Every touch sent sparks of sensation cascading through her body. He was gentle, so much gentler than she had expected from a man of such power. He asked permission with every new touch, waited for her consent before proceeding, learned what made her gasp and what made her moan. And when they finally joined, when he pressed inside her and stilled, his forehead resting against hers in the darkness, Valora felt something shift in her chest. A bond, fragile and new, but unmistakably real. I feel you, she whispered, in my chest. I feel the mate bond. His voice was strained. It's forming. Is that bad? A long pause. Too long. It's complicated. He began to move before she could question him further, and all thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm. There was only sensation. Only him. Only the impossible intimacy of two broken souls finding each other in the dark. Afterward, she expected him to leave. Instead, his arm curved around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. His skin was warmer now, as if her heat had transferred to him, as if she had thawed something frozen. Stay, she whispered. Please stay. I shouldn't. But you will? Another long pause, then quietly. Yes, tonight I will stay. She fell asleep wrapped in winter's embrace, and for the first time in her life, she felt safe. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Valora had ever experienced. Valdric came to her every night. At first, it was clearly about duty. He would arrive after darkness fell. They would come together in the lightless room, and he would leave before dawn. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. He started arriving earlier, sometimes before dinner, joining her in her sitting room to share a meal. They would talk for hours, conversations ranging from politics to philosophy to childhood memories he shared reluctantly, like gifts he wasn't sure he was allowed to give. She learned that he had been alone since he was 12, when his father had died suddenly and left him to rule a kingdom he was too young to understand. She learned that he had no siblings, no close family, no one who remembered him as anything other than the king. She learned that he read poetry when he couldn't sleep, and that his favorite color was green, the green of spring forests, which he found ironic given his perpetual winter. She told him things, too, about her mother, who had been kind before she was sold away, about the library in her father's house where she had hidden and taught herself to read, about the dreams she'd had as a child, before those dreams were beaten out of her. She did not tell him about her eyes. Not yet. That secret still felt too dangerous, too fragile. She clung to it like a shield, even as every other wall between them slowly crumbled. One morning, Vylora woke to find Valdric still beside her. This was unusual. He typically left before dawn, maintaining the appearance of separate lives, even as their private reality became something far more intimate. But today, gray light filtered through a crack in the curtains, and he remained. His eyes were closed. In sleep, the harsh lines of his face softened, making him look younger, more vulnerable, more human. But his skin was the color of snow, and his lips had a bluish tinge that made her chest constrict with worry. "Valdric?" She touched his cheek and recoiled. He was colder than she had ever felt him. Cold as death itself. His eyes snapped open, and for a moment there was no recognition in them. Just pain. Vast and ancient and terrible. Then he focused on her face, and the pain receded behind his usual mask. "Vylora." His voice was hoarse. "I apologize. I should have left hours ago. You're freezing." She pulled the blankets higher around them both, as if that could help. "This isn't normal, even for you." "I'm fine." "You're lying." He held her gaze, seconds stretching between them, and she saw something in his expression that frightened her. Resignation. "There are things about my family," he said slowly, "that I have not told you." "Then tell me now. It's not a burden you need to carry." Vylora sat up, clutching the blankets to her chest. "You are my husband. Your burdens are mine. Isn't that what you told me?" A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Using my own words against me. Is it working?" "Perhaps." He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "The kings of Velmoria, we are cursed, have been for 7 generations." Vylora's breath stopped. "Cursed how?" "Our blood runs cold because our hearts are frozen. We cannot form true bonds, cannot love. The curse was placed by a witch my ancestor wronged, and it has haunted our line ever since." He paused. "Every king who has tried to love has died. The curse accelerates. The cold spreads. Eventually, it reaches the heart entirely." "That's why you said you would never love me." "Yes." "That's why no king has lived past 35. "Yes." Vylora's mind raced. A curse. An ancient, terrible curse that killed anyone who dared to love. And she was married to a man who was already showing signs of that curse's progression. "There must be a way to break it," she said desperately. "Thousands have tried. Witches, healers, scholars. No one has ever succeeded." He reached out and touched her face, his cold fingers tracing her scars. "This is why I chose you, Vylora. I thought, if I could not see you, I could not truly know you. And if I could not know you, you could not love me." "Yes." His voice cracked on the word. "I was trying to protect myself, to survive long enough to produce an heir and secure my kingdom's future. And now?" He was silent, the pause stretching unbearably thin. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Now I fear I have failed." The admission hung between them, heavy with implication. Vylora's chest pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Valdric," she breathed. "What are you saying?" "Nothing." He pulled away, sitting up and swinging his legs over the edge of the bed. "Forget I spoke. This changes nothing." "It changes everything." "It cannot." He stood, his back to her, his shoulders rigid. "I have already condemned myself. I will not condemn you as well." Before she could respond, he was gone. 3 weeks later, Vylora discovered she was pregnant. The healer confirmed it with a gentle smile, clearly expecting joy. And there was joy, deep and fierce and unexpected. A child. Her child. Something good and pure that had come from the strange, complicated union between an ice king and his hidden queen. But beneath the joy was terror, because over those 3 weeks, Valdric had grown worse. The cold spells came more frequently now. Some mornings she would find frost on his pillow, crystallized from his breath. His movements had slowed, His appetite had faded, and sometimes, when he thought she wasn't looking, she saw him press his hand to his chest, as if something there caused him pain. She found him in the library that evening, staring into a fire that seemed to give him no warmth. "I need to tell you something," she said from the doorway. He turned and her chest clenched at the sight of him. There were shadows beneath his eyes that hadn't been there a month ago. His cheekbones stood out more sharply, as if the cold was consuming him from within. "What is it?" Valora crossed the room and took his hands in hers. They were like ice against her warm palms. "I'm pregnant." The words landed like stones in still water. She watched the ripples cross his face. Shock. Joy. And then, terrifyingly, despair. "No," he whispered. "No, this cannot. I thought you would be happy." Her voice trembled. "You said you needed an heir. I thought. I am happy." He gripped her hand so tightly it almost hurt. "Valora, I am happier than I have any right to be. But don't you understand what this means?" She shook her head, tears burning behind her eyes. "It means I love you." The words tore out of him like a confession. "I love you, Valora. I have loved you since the first night you shared your warmth with me, since you touched my face in the darkness and didn't flinch, since you looked at my curse and called it complicated instead of monstrous. Valdric, I love the sound of your voice. I love your courage. I love that you survived things that would have destroyed anyone else and still found it in yourself to trust me." He pressed his forehead to hers. "And I love our child already, before it is even born." "Then why do you look so afraid?" "Because love is what kills us." His voice broke. "The curse has been accelerating for weeks. Every time I feel something for you, every time my heart softens, the cold grows stronger. And now..." He pulled back, his face twisted with anguish. "Now you've given me the one thing I wanted most in this world, and it's going to kill me." "No." Valora grabbed his shirt, pulling him close. "No, I won't lose you, Valdric. Not now, 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 not now. "I won't lose you, Valdric. Not now. Not when I've finally found..." She couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't have to. "I love you too," She whispered instead, "I love you so much it terrifies me." Valdric's eyes widened. For one beautiful moment, pure joy transformed his features. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like he would never let go. Then his face contorted in agony. His hand flew to his chest. Frost exploded across his skin, spreading from his heart outward in crackling white patterns. His legs buckled and Valora caught him, lowering them both to the floor. "Valdric!" she screamed. "Valdric!" His eyes were fixed on hers, already glazing over with ice. His lips moved, forming words she could barely hear. The curse. And then his eyes closed, and he went still in her arms, cold as the grave. Valora screamed until guards broke down the door. They carried Valdric to his chambers while she clutched his frozen hand, refusing to let go. That was 3 days ago. Since then, the healers came and went like ghosts, their faces grave and their remedies useless. Valdric lay in his chambers, motionless on a bed that had become a frozen wasteland. Ice crawled across the sheets, up the bedposts, spreading outward from his body in crystalline patterns that grew larger with each passing hour. His skin had gone translucent, blue veins visible beneath like rivers frozen mid-flow. His heartbeat, when the healers could detect it at all, came once every 30 seconds. He was dying, slowly, inevitably, and Valora could do nothing but watch. "There must be something," she said to the chief healer, a weathered woman named Marin, who had served the royal family for 40 years. "Some treatment, some remedy." Marin shook her head, her eyes filled with the resigned sorrow of someone who had seen this before. "I watched his father die the same way, Your Majesty, and his grandfather before that. The curse cannot be healed by medicine. It requires magic, old magic, and the kind that hasn't existed in generations." "What kind of magic?" "Curse weaving." Marin's voice dropped. "The art of seeing curses and unraveling them. But the curse weavers were hunted to extinction centuries ago. There are none left." Valora's blood ran cold. After Marin left, she sat beside Valdric's frozen form, her mind racing. Curse weaver. The same word her sister had spat at her like an accusation. The same power her father had tried to cut from her face. Her hands trembled as she reached up and removed her veil. In the dim light of the sick room, she could see her reflection in the ice that covered the walls. The scars were familiar, ridged lines mapping her face like a broken road. But it was her eyes that made her breath catch. Silver. Pure, luminous silver, with no pupil or iris visible. Just endless metallic light that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. Curseweaver eyes. She had hidden them her entire life, had kept them closed or covered whenever anyone might see, terrified of what would happen if the truth emerged. Her father had tried to destroy them when she was 8 years old, carving into her face with a ritual knife, attempting to blind her before her power could fully manifest. He had failed. The eyes had healed. The scars remained as evidence of his attempt. But Valora had never dared to use what those eyes could do. Until now. Slowly, terrified of what she might see, Valora turned her silver gaze toward her dying husband. The world transformed. Where before she had seen only a frozen man, now she saw the curse itself. It was a living thing, a writhing mass of black chains wrapped around Valdric's heart, pulsing with malevolent energy. The chains were old, ancient, covered in runes she could not read. They had been placed with devastating precision, designed to activate whenever their victim felt love, tightening with each emotion until they crushed the heart entirely. But there was something else. The chains were connected to something. A thread of darkness that extended from Valdric's chest, through the walls, across impossible distances. The curse was not self-contained. It was anchored somewhere, to someone. Valora followed the thread with her eyes, tracing its path through stone and sky until she saw where it led. Her blood turned to ice colder than anything Valdric had ever produced. The anchor point was familiar. A manor house. A man standing by a fireplace. Her father. The curse that was killing Valdric was connected to Lord Aldous Grenthorpe. You knew. Valora stood in the doorway of her father's study, her veil firmly in place, her voice steady despite the fury coursing through her veins. She had ridden through the night, pushing her horse to its limits, arriving at the Grenthorpe estate as dawn broke over the hills. Lord Aldous turned from the window, his expression shifting from surprise to contempt in the space of a heartbeat. Knew what? That my worthless daughter would come crawling back eventually? The curse on the Velmorian kings. You're the anchor. The words landed like a physical blow. She saw it in the way his face went pale, the way his hands clenched at his sides. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. Valora stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. I saw it. With my eyes. The eyes you tried to cut out of my skull when I was 8 years old. Those abominations should have been destroyed. Do you think I didn't know what Curseweaver eyes could do? You could have seen the anchor. Unraveled everything my family built. But they weren't destroyed. And now I see everything, Father. She pulled off her veil, letting him see the full horror of what he had created. The scars he had carved. The silver eyes he had failed to blind. I see the curse wrapped around my husband's heart. I see the chain that connects it to you. And I see the truth you've been hiding for decades. Lord Aldis's face twisted with rage and fear. You understand nothing. Then explain it to me. Valora's voice was deadly calm. Explain why the Lord of House Grenthorpe is magically bound to a curse that has killed 7 generations of kings. Her father said nothing, the silence stretching thin. Then, slowly, horribly, he began to laugh. You want the truth? Fine. He turned to face her fully, and she saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Madness. My great-great-grandmother was the witch who cast that curse. She was the king's mistress, discarded when he grew tired of her, and she swore revenge on his entire bloodline. Different magic than your mother's bloodline, but just as dangerous. Your mother could see curses. My ancestor could create them. And you inherited the one thing that could destroy what we built. Valora's stomach churned. Your family created the curse? Created it. Maintained it. Passed down the anchor from generation to generation. His smile was grotesque. Do you know what that anchor provides, daughter? Power. Every time a Velmorian king dies, his life force flows through the curse and into the anchor. It's why our family has thrived while others fell. It's why we've maintained our wealth and influence for centuries. You've been feeding on their deaths. A small price for greatness. He stepped closer, and Valora forced herself not to retreat. Your mother discovered the truth. That's why I really sold her. Not because of you, though your cursed eyes certainly didn't help. She found the anchor stone and threatened to destroy it. Where is it? Lord Aldous laughed again. You think I'll tell you? The king is already dying. In a few days, his life force will flow into me, and I'll be more powerful than ever. Your bastard child will inherit a frozen throne, and I'll be there to guide the kingdom as regent. I won't let that happen. You can't stop it. His voice dripped with contempt. You're nothing. A scarred, broken nothing. You couldn't even protect yourself from me. How do you expect to save a dying king? Valora met his eyes, silver against brown, and monster against monster. Because I'm not the scared child you tried to blind anymore, Father. She stepped forward. I am the Queen of Velmoria. I am a curse weaver, the last of my kind. And I am going to tear your precious anchor apart with my bare hands. She lunged. The fight was brief and brutal. Lord Aldous was stronger than he looked, enhanced by centuries of stolen life force, but Valora had something he didn't. Desperation. Love. The burning need to save the man who had given her everything she never dared to hope for. She fought like a woman possessed, using every dirty trick she had learned in years of surviving his abuse. When he grabbed her throat, She drove her knee into his groin. When he tried to pin her down, she bit his hand until she tasted blood. And when he reached for the knife at his belt, the same knife he had used to carve her face, she slammed her forehead into his nose with a crack that echoed through the study. He collapsed, blood streaming down his face, too dazed to stop her as she tore through the room, searching for the anchor. She found it hidden behind a false panel in the wall, a stone, small enough to fit in her palm, black as void, pulsing with the same dark energy she had seen wrapped around Valdric's heart. When she touched it, she felt the screams of 7 dead kings, their life force trapped within, feeding a curse that should have ended generations ago. "Don't," her father groaned from the floor. "If you destroy that, you destroy our family's legacy. Everything we've built. Your legacy is death." Valora closed her silver eyes, focusing on the stone with her curse weaver sight. "And I am ending it." She could see the curse's structure now, the intricate web of dark magic that connected the anchor to the Velmorian bloodline. It was complex, ancient, designed to be unbreakable. But nothing was truly unbreakable. Not to eyes that could see the threads of fate itself. Valora reached into the curse with her mind. Not physically, but spiritually, her consciousness diving into the darkness like a swimmer plunging into black water. She found the first knot, the core binding that held everything together, and she began to pull. Pain exploded through her skull. The curse fought back, lashing at her consciousness with barbed tendrils of malevolent energy. She felt it trying to corrupt her, to turn her curse weaver power against her, to add her to the collection of souls trapped within the stone. But she held on. She thought of Valdric, his cold hands gentle on her scarred face, his voice in the darkness, asking permission before every touch. The way he had looked at her when she told him about the baby, joy and terror mingled in those frost-colored eyes. She thought of their child, growing inside her, innocent of all this horror. She thought of the life they could have together, if only she could break this chain, and she pulled harder. The first knot unraveled, then the second, then the third. The curse screamed around her, a sound that existed only in her mind but threatened to shatter her sanity. Her nose began to bleed. Her silver eyes blazed with light that spilled from beneath her closed lids, illuminating the entire room. Behind her, she heard her father sobbing. "Stop! You'll kill us both! You'll—" She didn't stop. One by one, she unraveled the knots that had held the curse together for 7 generations. She freed the trapped souls of dead kings, feeling them rush past her like cold wind, finally released from their prison. She followed the dark thread back to its source, to the original hatred that had birthed this monstrosity, and she severed it with a thought as sharp as any blade. The anchor stone shattered in her hands. Valora woke to warmth. She was lying on something soft, surrounded by familiar scents, her chambers, her bed, home, but she was not alone. A hand held hers, and that hand was warm, not cold. Warm, like a living man's hand should be. Her eyes flew open. Valdric sat beside her bed, his color restored, his eyes bright with tears. Behind him, morning sunlight streamed through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold. "You're alive," she breathed. "Thanks to you." His voice broke with emotion. "Valora, what you did. The healers said you nearly died. Your heart stopped twice on the journey back. If the guards hadn't found you when they did. But I didn't die." She reached up to touch his face, marveling at the warmth beneath her fingers. "And neither did you. The curse. Gone." He pressed his cheek into her palm. I felt it break. Felt the cold recede for the first time in my entire life. I thought I was dying, and then suddenly I was more alive than I had ever been. Tears spilled down Valora's cheeks. "And the baby?" "The healers say the baby is perfect. Strong heartbeat. Growing well." He laughed, a sound of pure, unburdened joy. Our child will never know the curse. None of my descendants will ever suffer as my family has suffered. Because of you. Because of us. Valora struggled to sit up, and Valdric helped her, his hands steady and warm. Where is my father? Valdric's expression darkened. In the dungeon, awaiting trial. Your sister testified against him. Apparently, she knew about the anchor and was horrified when she discovered what it truly was. She's been cooperating fully with the investigation. Valora nodded slowly. She was not ready to forgive Lysara, might never be fully ready. But perhaps there was hope for something other than hatred between them. And my eyes? She touched her face, suddenly aware that her veil was gone, that she was fully exposed in the daylight. You've seen them. I have. Valdric took her hands in his, bringing them to his lips. Valora, your eyes are the most beautiful things I have ever seen. They saved my life. They broke an unbreakable curse. They are not something to hide. They are something to celebrate. The court will fear me. A curse weaver queen. The court will learn to respect you as I do. His voice was fierce. You are my wife, my mate, my salvation. I will not allow anyone to make you feel ashamed of what you are ever again. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like their kisses in the darkness. This was a kiss in full sunlight, with no secrets between them. A kiss between two people who had seen each other's worst truths and chosen to love anyway. When they finally parted, Valdric rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said. I can finally say it without fear. I love you, Valora. I love your courage and your scars and your impossible silver eyes. I love the child growing inside you. I love the life we're going to build together. I love you too. The words felt like freedom. I love your warmth, now that you have it. I love that you chose me when everyone else threw me away. I love that you gave me darkness when I needed to hide and light when I was ready to be seen. No more hiding, Valdric said. No more hiding, Valora agreed. 6 months later, the Queen of Velmoria gave birth to a daughter. She was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a shock of dark hair, and eyes that shifted between her father's gray and her mother's silver depending on the light. They named her Seraphine, which meant burning one in the old tongue, a name chosen to honor the fire that had melted a curse of ice. The kingdom celebrated for a week. Lord Aldous Grenthorpe was executed for his crimes against the crown, his family's ill-gotten wealth redistributed to those who had suffered under the curse's shadow. Lysara took a position in the queen's household, slowly rebuilding a relationship with the sister she had wronged, the process painful but genuine. And in the evenings, when the sun set over the mountains and painted the castle in shades of gold and rose, the king and queen would walk in the gardens with their daughter, 3 figures silhouetted against the light. Valora no longer wore a veil. Her scars were visible for all to see, and her silver eyes gleamed without shame. Some courtiers still whispered. Some visitors still stared. But no one dared speak against the woman who had broken an ancient curse and saved their king's life. She was no longer the rejected daughter, the hidden shame, the monster in the shadows. It? Valdric asked one evening as they watched Seraphine chase butterflies through the rose bushes. Choosing me that night at the betrothal feast? Valora leaned into his warmth, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady against her back. You chose me, she reminded him. I was just trying to survive. And now? She turned to face him, this man who had seen her at her worst and loved her anyway. This man who had given her safety when she expected cruelty and warmth when she expected cold. Now, she said, rising on her toes to kiss him, I am finally living. Valdric smiled, pulling her close, and together they watched their daughter dance in the fading light. They had both been broken, both been hiding, both been certain that love was something meant for other people, better people, people without scars and curses and terrible secrets. But love had found them anyway, and it had set them free.